Good morning, traders. This is Daryl, and I'm showing the pound Aussie right here. This is a daily chart of the pound Aussie, and as you can probably see down here at the bottom, our stochastics are beginning to head up. Got a bit of a frog, excuse me for a couple of so this is one that I really like based on the daily anyways. Number one, we have a move up right now, and this is June 28th in the AM New York, early afternoon across the pond. Because the pound Aussie tends to pick a direction and go for quite a distance. So having seen the wild news swings this morning, and up here in the top you can see the pound is quite strong at this point, and it has been all morning, and it's due to a fundamental analysis where they're the talking head in the UK was talking about how the necessity to raise interest rates, and that's always very strong for a currency, weak for the commodity, not the commodities, but the indices like the stocks and bond markets and such. But so number one, I was bullish generally as far as my opinion of what's going on with this pair, and also the Aussie dollar was generally weaker, as you can see down here. So I started comparing this one, and I saw what I thought was a good entry here. Now, let me get to the next chart, which is a 4-hour chart. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is, as I said, the 4-hour chart of the pound Aussie, and on this I've drawn in some interesting levels. Now, I also keep daily pivots on here. So first, let me talk a little bit about that. Number one, most of the trading is above the daily pivot, and in fact, one other line I should have on here is right about 85. Right about here at this level, okay, is where the daily open was, and so price had been trading this day anyways above the daily open mostly. So the daily open is always a good indicator of trading over and above. That's generally going to tend to stay that way. Right below that, this pink line is the central pivot for the daily central pivot, which price had actually gone down to on these two 4-hour candles right here and bounced back up. So I like that. And then the this zone over here is from several days ago. Let me see, that was about 3 weeks ago or so, is a strong supply zone. And briefly what I mean by that is that you see by this bar right here that price left this area really quickly, and it just dropped straight away down to here, probably some other news event, news release, but it doesn't really matter, because what happens in the case of a supply or a demand zone, which would be coming up from the bottom, you have a void that needs to be filled. I could get into a whole lengthy explanation of what's going on there, but just think of it as like a vacuum. Okay, so in a vacuum needs to be filled. So if you have like a container that's vacuum sealed, I'm sure you've opened up jars that as soon as you open them, you hear this little sucking noise. So, I mean, this actually works in a very similar way. So once price gets up here. I mean, it is sucked back up. It may take weeks, like in this case, but once it does, it will generally tend to react, because sellers simply wait in levels like this, expecting a reaction, and it's kind of one of the unwritten kind of assumptions. Nothing is a rule in Forex, except you'll probably lose money if you do stupid stuff. That's definitely a rule. But anyways, so this is a 4-hour supply zone. Now I have further refined this down to a 1-hour supply zone, and I think that shows up on another chart. I'll have to take a look, but and this area right here happens to be about 60 pips. So once price gets up in this zone, I would expect a strong reaction. Now, also we have the fibs on here, and this zone right here is the 50 fib, which the pound pairs, in my opinion, tend to react from there. And then right in the middle of this supply zone is the 61 fib. And if you've looked at any number of different threads or videos, the 61 is considered a great area to trade from, to get some sort of reaction also. So keeping that in mind, once price gets up here, which is another 150 pips or so, 130 pips, you can expect a good pull down. But mainly what I'm looking at here, as I said, from the daily, is that I'm expecting the pound to go up much further. I mean, it could go up significantly further, but I wouldn't bank on that, because we still have Brexit kind of hanging in the lurch. Okay, so enough about this 4-hour. Let me bring a 1-hour on here, and we'll take a look at what's going on here. Oh, by the way, if you look down here, the stochastics did dip pretty low, and now it's definitely showing to head back up. But the main one I'm looking at here is the daily, which was very strong. Okay, so now bringing in the 1-hour. Okay, so in the 1-hour, I just kind of scrunched this up, and you can see that when price broke out right over here at this level, that we had a this high that it broke above, and also these highs right over here from a few weeks ago. So it is approaching up to this area where it runs into its first kind of resistance right here. If you can see this little bar right here coming down to almost the 50. I think the level on this is about 17060, something like that. Once again, this bar right here. And this is a good place also to expect some sort of reaction generally. Okay, so now why all of this is important, I'll get on to why you should maybe keep an eye on this. It might be a good thing to look at. I actually did trade this morning because I was feeling like there might be something going on here. And I was just playing pretty much pound strength against Aussie weakness, and the fact also that this pair tends to move in really rapid fashion. Oops, wrong one. Let me get rid of this one here. Yeah, so this is the 5-minute chart of the Aussie. I have it blown way up, and pretty much the stochastic at this point is inconsequential. It's just a 5-minute, but I took an entry, and why I took this entry was price had pulled back to about this level right here. Okay, so we have a level. This is the close of this 5-minute bar. This was the open and the close of the 5-minute bar, and this was the open of this 5-minute bar. So when I saw this happen in real time, then I saw this one pull back to here. I actually got in, and this, I don't know if you can see this little red line right in here. That's where my stop was. And the pound Aussie, if you don't put in a big stop, you might as well not even trade this thing, because it can move pretty crazy. And my stop was about 28 pips or something like that. And my spread on this one was pretty outrageous. You can see down here that it tends to run at least 4 plus. I think when I got in, it was actually about 6.5, close to 7 pips. And the entry that I clicked in was right here. That's why I wrote down click entry. But by the time it was filled, it was up about here. And then with the spread, it got me in right here. That's just part of the deal. And remember, these are 5-minute bars. And so once I got in, price started moving up almost immediately. I think at worst I was down maybe 7 pips or something like that. And when it got up to here, which is about 40, I clicked out, because I'd already made 40 pips, and I went back and checked. That was 4 minutes. So now I'm not saying that you're going to get in and make 40 pips in 4 minutes on any trade. This just happened to be me taking a lot of things into consideration. And the reason I did click out here is I knew this other support area. Let me see if I can bring this up. This area right here was the low of this bar right here was getting close. And then I saw a slight hesitation. Let's see if I can get this back here. I saw a slight hesitation when price came up here, started moving around a little bit. So I just looked, I got 40 pips. I'm going, this is a gimme, so I'm out. Anyways, so that was the trade. Now, what I really wanted to point out here is 2 things. So normally you see this type of pattern where price jets up, and then there's a little bit of a pullback, and then it will tend to kind of take off again without much of a pullback. In this case, there wasn't much. It was probably 70 to 74. This actually doesn't look like much, but this was about a 35 pip bar. This little doji or hanging man, or whatever you want to call it, or I don't know. I don't know all the names that well. So this was quite a pullback, actually. So I figured it was worth a shot. And then this candle came up. This one pulled back a little bit more. So I just happened to pull the trigger. But anyways, I digress. You see a move like this, and you generally see it more like on at least a 15-minute and sometimes a 1 hour, where price just jets on up, and then there's a little bit of a pullback before it takes off in the second leg of the move. So seeing this on the 5-minute is the same as I would normally be looking on a 1 hour or 30-minute or 15-minute. That's what gave me the thought to try this trade out. So now, when price moves up probably to, get this 1 hour back here, or 4 hours, sorry. When price pulls up a little bit further to around the 50, which is 170.52, and the low of this, which is about this bar right here, which is about 170.60, I would expect another pullback, or that pullback may not happen until we get up to this supply zone up here, and somewhere in here I'm expecting a larger pullback, maybe down to the range of 50% from this bottom to wherever this hits here. So it could come back quite a distance. And this 5-minute chart shows this area that I really like as far as pullback coming to this zone for a re-entry. Okay, and this is only like about a 10 pip zone, and it's 169.76 through 169.66.65. So maybe include this zone or make this zone include 5 pips either way, so it might be like a 20 pip zone. Anybody, that's what they should do. I'm just suggesting it could be a potential being the operative word here, potential pullback entry zone. And also this bar right here, this 5-minute bar, creates a big void between here and there, creating a demand zone, right down in here. Okay, so this demand zone, if price happens to breach, say, about this level right here, chances are it's going to go down a lot further. This level right here is about 169.50, which might be a good place for a stop. And as compared to this zone right here, which is about 168.85, so this is 65 pips from here down to here. So I wouldn't put too big of a stop here. I would expect it to pull back to at least yesterday's high, which is about 20 pips below here. But in a pair like this, you want to really be cautious. Also, the time of the day that you would trade this. Is there any Aussie economics reports coming out, which they can come out any time of the day or night because of the time difference between the northern and southern hemisphere. So just a few things to think about, but I'd suggest maybe keeping an eye on the pound Aussie. Might not be a bad idea. In fact, looking over here to a live chart, let's see if I can bring that up. Right now, let me see here. Let's go to 1 hour. Okay. We're moving slow because I've got 2 platforms open and stuff. But it's come down. This is live, by the way. It's come down to 87, so it's almost down to the zone that I was talking about. Let's go to let's go to a 15-minute, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, standing by while this thing decides to take its time moving. Here we go. And this supply zone that, I'm not the supply, but the entry zone that I was talking about, oh my gosh, everything is moving so slow. Okay, do I have it here? Yeah, is right about, enlarge this a wee bit. Okay. Is right about down in here. Okay, come on. There we go. So, somewhere right down in here, which is, like I said, about 196.60 to 196.80. So this zone right here would be my a pullback zone that I would be looking at strongly. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody trade this. Maybe if you have a demo, you could play around with it. But if you're not familiar with everything I've been talking about here, just stay out with real money, okay? And anyways, I'm going to end this here, and I hope it makes sense and might give some people some ideas about various things that maybe to look out for. And this is Daryl signing off.